Listen to my baby. Hey, welcome back to Visons Now, Supper Club. All views expressed for their educational and journalistic purposes, they're not the views. The management, advertisers, and staff of 92.1 FM. However, Visions does desire to bring a quality entertainment program which intellectually stimulates and culturally fulfills our community's needs to develop leadership and informed decision making for our collective future. Welcome to the village, often imitated, but never duplicated. I'm Dr. Jaylene Hood, your host and executive producer. Welcome.
Yeah, I just posted it on your page, as a matter of fact.
Honorable and illustrious Dr. Carr. Dr. Carr is one of my professors here at Howard University, but also the chairman of African American Studies here at the school. And it's an honor just to sit here and talk, chop it up about everything under the sun. You give so many wisdom tidbits and jewels and gems that I felt like it was important for me to share, just my process and all the education that, I'm receiving here at Howard, and just even our real talk conversations are just inspiring. So I feel like, every episode on a podcast, as well as visually, just to kind of just put a framing question out there, and then we just dig in and just, if we want to go deeper, we'll list the books and titles and all of that type of stuff. But just really just to scratch the surface on some topics. And, I feel like the first one we should just jump into, because this is the first episode of Cannon's class, would really be, why I chose to go back to college, and specifically an HBCU. And then more than that, what is an HBCU and what's the purpose for them? And, you hear the term HBCU a lot when categorized of different universities, from Howard to Clark to Johnson C. Smith to Grambling. And these are historic Black colleges and universities. And I know personally, I can just come off the top and say one of the reasons why I chose to go back to school, and I didn't have to. A lot of people always say, "Man, what you going to college for? Like, you got all the money in the world, you know what I mean? You achieve somewhat success in society's mind. What's the purpose?" And I truly feel that. And I bought every car I ever wanted, bought every piece of jewelry I've ever wanted, but I would say education is true wealth. And it's the true riches. And that's one thing they can't take away from you. And that's the one thing during my career, I felt like I was missing something. There was a void. And it was really the education. I felt like I wasn't growing as a man. Yes, sir. Even though I was, accumulating things, I wasn't really enriching and building myself. And through that, not only did I want to, because it's not about the degree or the paperwork, but it's more about learning more, building myself. And while I can learn everything in any book at any university, I wanted to learn more about my people and where I come from. Absolutely. And that's why I chose, HBCU, specifically Howard University, which is the Mecca. Yes, and then, to be able to have discourse and dialogue with brothers like yourself, on a daily basis. Like, it's such a wealth of knowledge within these institutions. And I just really felt like not only did I want to come get it, but I wanted to give it to the people as well. So what is the purpose, or what is a HBCU, and what's the purpose of them in your opinion?
Well, let me say this first, brother. It's an honor to be here on the inaugural, edition of Cannon's class. And secondly, for everybody who's going to see this, it's important, and I'm honored to be here in a moment when you get to demonstrate the power of the historically Black college and university by this.
Right.
Because this might look easy to somebody looking at this, but let's be very clear. What this brother is doing right now and what he's been doing and what we do in this space, it only looks easy until you try it.
Right.
So, the purpose of historically Black college and university is to have these kind of conversations and have them lead to the uplift of all of our people.
Right.
And one of the things that historically Black colleges and universities have done since their beginning is be open spaces for not just Black people, but anyone wanting to learn to come in and engage.
Right.
Now, many of them were set up, of course, for Black people.
Right.
And the reason that white people didn't come here initially to any of the Black colleges, well, except Howard, which we could talk about, but because Howard by law was prevented from discriminating since it was founded in 1867.
Right.
Yeah, because Howard was founded just after the Civil War. The 14th Amendment was passed. You can't discriminate by race.
Right.
Howard got a federal charter, so it couldn't discriminate by race.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know that the first students at Howard University were white daughters of the founders. That's right. Who were white. They're like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. Now, of course, that's not true. Johnson C. Smith.
Right.
Or Tennessee State, where I went to school, or Grambling.
Right.
But that's because the law said white people couldn't come there.
Really?
Yeah. It was illegal for them to come. So people say, why y'all have all Black schools? Because you passed the law and said white people couldn't come.
So, there you have it.
Yeah, there it is. Very simple.
Because that's the question a lot of people ask today. Like, even like, well, isn't a historically Black college or all these Black universities that's racist? Like, how? Well, like, but it's like, nah, it's not. And it's like, well, why? What if we called it a historically white college? Like, we do call it that.
In fact, I would call that Ohio State where I went to school. That's a HWCU, brother.
There it is.
Yeah, but they don't call them that.
They don't. Yeah, or sometimes they refer to them as predominantly white.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why change the nomenclature?
Yeah.
It's historically white.
It's been white.
And it's been white. Right?
And it's gonna be white.
Right. GBW.
Right, exactly.
And we've lost, and you were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
You said you have family that went to Johnson C. Smith.
Yeah.
Barbara Scotia.
Yeah.
And Barbara Scotia, in many ways, got turned. West Virginia State is no longer majority white.
Wow.
Yeah. Lincoln University in Jefferson, Missouri. Once white people were allowed to come to HBCUs by law, a lot of white people discover something.
Yeah.
These are some of the best educational institutions in the country.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just American education. And we're going to definitely get into that because we got some historic American calendar events that we want to jump into. But I think that even because when I talk to cats in the hood and like, it's like education there's no connection to it. And I feel like somebody made this great analogy. It's like, yo, if you see a picture on the wall that's got you and all your squad, and you go on Instagram and you looking at a picture,
right?
The first thing you look for is like where I'm at.
Oh, you looking for yourself?
No
question.
Like, yo, I remember we took this picture. I remember say, where am I?
No doubt.
But if you're not in that picture, then you don't care about that picture.
That's right, brother.
And that's the thing about education. We've never been in the picture of education.
Formal education.
Formal education.
Because people, I mean, it's interesting because one of the things that we connected on very early, man, over the arc of your career and your public life,
right?
You're constantly educating.
Right.
People understand. We got a lot of people on this campus who do work in psychology, who do brain science in the medical school. And they're constantly reminding us that human beings are learning machines. We're constantly being educated.
Right.
The question becomes, what are we teaching? What are we learning?
And how does that help? Because a lot of people, some people only go to college or get any type of education to further their journey through capitalism.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? To make as much money. I'm only going to school so I can get a good job.
Wow. That's an important point.
Right.
In fact, part of the HBCU legacy is to blunt that impulse.
Right.
And you don't have to look any further than the models of the universities.
Right.
You know, where I went to school, our model was Tennessee State.
Hey, did you know you might get a big...
What is so great about Egypt that white scientists, scholars, etc., wanted to make it a European country?
Because Egypt is the oldest and the most highly developed technical civilization in the history of humanity,
From which flowed
the civilizations throughout the rest of the world. We're talking mathematics, astronomy, we're talking chemistry. Chemistry, for example, is named after Kemet. It comes from chem, or chemistry. We're talking religion, we're talking philosophy, we're talking all genre of literature, such as the epic play, the poem, everything, the arts and the sciences, grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, astronomy, geometry, music, what have you. This is Pharaoh Senwosret the First. The Greeks changed his name to Sesostris. The reason I say he's important in this Middle Kingdom is that this is the man who, according to European legend, was the founder of Athens. And then here's Amenemhet the Third.
and this is your Egyptian king.
This is an Egyptian king, Pharaoh, Amenemhet the Third again.
Can you go back to that other one?
Yes, we'll go back to the
Okay.
other one.
Now, this is an Egyptian king.
Yeah.
These statues, these images, and maybe we should say that these are not drawings recently done.
No, these are
carvings
carvings that were
recently.
done. This would have been done around 2,000 years before Christ.
Okay, now these carvings were around all along.
Oh, they've been here.
All right. Why was it that you had European images when the Egyptian story was put on the screen?
Well, again, you have to remember what's happened. If you look at Egyptology and if you look at Hollywood, Europeans have claimed African history for themselves. And so you'll get Yul Brynner, Carlton Heston portraying Egyptians. You get Vivian Leigh and other European actors and actresses. And so after a while, the public begins to believe that this is what they really look like. We had these images that we could look at, and we could get people who look like them, but they did not.
Hello, I'm Lister Velt Middleton. We are very glad to have you with us. At the beginning of this century, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois predicted that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. And color, the glorification of one and denigration of another or others, continues to play a dominant role in determining how power is distributed. But what are the tools that have been used and are being used to maintain black-white power relationships? And how are words and images being used to control thought and action among people of African descent in the United States and around the globe? When and how does an African become a Negro? How was the myth of white superiority created in the modern world, and how was it projected back in time? So-called Western education for black children, poison or medicine, the origins of humanity, the beginnings of civilization, royal African images in ancient Egypt, and Africa's gift to Europe. Just some of the topics we'll explore with Dr. Asa G. Hilliard III, the Fuller E. Calloway Professor of Urban Education at Georgia State University. Dr. Hilliard is the former Dean of the School of Education at San Francisco State University. A highly respected educational psychologist, Dr. Hilliard was involved with the court case that outlawed IQ testing for black children in California. Dr. Hilliard recovered with Julian Richardson, George G.M. James' seminal work, Stolen Legacy, The African Origin of Greek Philosophy. Dr. Hilliard, what does it mean to be black in America from a psycho-historical perspective?
It's important for blacks in America to know history. That history includes the history of enslavement in Africa.
Hello, visionaries. This is Dr. Jaylene Wood, the host and executive producer for Visons Now, and also your Mystic brother. That's right, with the Mystic Moment, 92.1 FM, smooth R&B, every Thursday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we're the one that said, help us help you. And what we're trying to do is that we're trying to get money into our community. We spend too much money with other people that don't do nothing for our community. All of this water here, that we are here for fundraisers for you, okay, to help us provide resources for our programs for our young people. We were just in Elizabeth County yesterday. We're gonna be going to Warren Williams. Gonna be going to Fowley Homes. We're coming to a neighborhood near you. But the bottom line is that if you have an athletic team, they need to be drinking real water. This is water not from Walmart. This is from the Black Wall Street Network. We have to bring our dollars back home. We're making everybody rich, okay, and also making us emotionally poor because we don't support each other. So if you have a business out there, restaurant, or you know somebody, or you just want to get some water for your own personal use, this is the best water in the business. None better. God made this water. It's artesian spring water. Artesian. Don't go by just I'm not gonna call no name. That blue bottle and all these other jackleg bottles. No, this is the real water. Abarigane visionaries. And of course, today is the first day of the Kwanzaa season. We're not a holiday because we have divine origins. Kwanzaa is a season, and the season represents the time when we close out one solar cycle and we have a rebirth of a new solar cycle that some people call the birth of the sun god, of the Christ, of the resurrection. And it also represents a resurrection of our minds as well. And with that being part of our mission, today we're going to be talking with someone that I've just so enthralled with, and she's the leader of the Southern Region for the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. But before we bring her on, we want to make a couple of announcements so that we don't have any interruptions when we get started, because we have a lot to cover. And of course, that's Brother Melvin Tanner Jr., branch president of the Columbus branch NAACP. And we have the Freedom Fund banquet coming up here real soon. And many people don't realize that the Freedom Fund banquet really has its origins in Columbus, Georgia. And the origins was because of the assassination of my fraternity brother, that is, of course, Dr. Thomas Brewer. He was assassinated, and during that time, and the efforts of many people to leave Columbus, Georgia, and of course, many of them moved to Detroit and other places, but the Freedom Fund banquet was a part of that movement at that time to raise funds to assure that we had the proper resources, legal resources within NAACP. So, Brother Tanner, I'd like to welcome you to, you're a visionary, I'd like to welcome you, and he's also a member of our New Era Columbus, Georgia Coalition, a new way of doing things, which is really the old way of doing things. It's the Old Testament of doing things, not the New
Yes,
Testament.
sir.
Right. But it's a new era for those, I guess you call those XYZ generation, whatever we call them. But it's a new for them. So we call it's the new old, or the old new. Way of thinking for the New Era Coalition. So again, welcome, Brother Tanner, and tell us briefly what's going on and with the banquet this year.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Dr. Hood, for allowing us the opportunity to share with the community and the citizens of Columbus the upcoming events for their local NAACP, and I'm also happy Kwanzaa to you.
Shukran and Sante Sana.
With that being said, Dr. Hood, as you mentioned, this is
Moja, by the way.
Yes, sir. This is our 50th annual Freedom Fund banquet. Now, with that being said, this is not the 50th year that the branch has been in existence. Actually, the branch has been in existence for 85 years come February the 13th of next year. But with that being said, the 50th annual Freedom Fund banquet is scheduled to be held January the 10th, 2025 at the Columbus Convention Trade Center. The event starts at 7 p.m. And our guest speaker is the Honorable Stacey Abrams. Tickets are $100 a piece and can be purchased at 1300 Wynn Road, Suite 104, which happens to be the office of the Carrier Echo Latino newspaper. Individuals can actually call if they want to pick up tickets. I'll give a couple numbers if you don't mind, Dr. Hud. Yes, sir, 706-250-8045. Once again, it's 706-250-8045, as well as 706-358-1414. 9202. And I need to say that one more time. It's 706-358-9202. And also, when you started out, Dr. Hood, you mentioned about Thomas Brewer. I'd like to mention as well that the organization does actually have an award named after Thomas Brewer as well. And I don't want to actually say who's going to be receiving that award, but some lucky citizen from Columbus or in the area will be receiving the Thomas Brewer Award at our banquet as well.
Okay, and again, what's that date again?
Yes, sir. January the 10th, 2025, sir.
And of course, that's former candidate for governor of the state of Georgia, Sister Stacey Abrams. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, and so again, we look forward to being there as always. And I'm not going to throw no shade, but I'll just say this: is that when someone put out an award called the Thomas Brewer Award, that's a high bar, and
Yes,
I hope it's not a popularity contest, because Dr. Thomas Brewer was not he did not win a popularity contest because he was a cutting edge person. So I'm just saying that to say that we'll be looking anxiously at who this might be this year. Okay.
yes, sir.
So again, I thank you for being with us tonight, and look forward to seeing you on the 10th. And hopefully I get a seat up close, because my eyes are not as good as they used to be. So I hope I'm not in the I have to put on my binoculars to look and see what's going on. All right.
Yes, sir. Once again, Dr. Hood, thank you for all you do as well. Okay.
Thank you so much, very, 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 very much. So again, this Mr. Melvin Tanner, president of the local branch of the Columbus NAACP. Now for the main event of the day for me, certainly. I'd like to bring on from the waiting room. Bring her. I'm not going to say from the bullpen. She just in the waiting room because she's not a bull by no means, but she's tough. But this is Dr. Reba C. Kelsey, program director of the Morehouse School of Medicine, Family Medicine Residency Program, and associate dean of graduate medical education. Recognized for her exemplary leadership and dedication to medical education, Dr. Kelsey was honored as the Georgia Academy of Family Physicians 2022 Educator of the Year. She is celebrated for her commitment to mentoring residents, advancing clinical research, and providing exceptional patient care at the local and national levels. Dr. Kelsey has earned multiple accolades, including MSM's Graduate Medical Education Faculty Member of the Year Award and the Leonard Toll Humanism in Medicine Award. Renowned for her approachability and steadfast pursuit of excellence, she is a trusted mentor and clinician, inspiring the next generation of family physicians. She is also sought after to provide guidance on developing and improving the quality of medical residency and fellowship programs nationally. Given her particular interest in improving health in the Black community, she enjoys providing health education in the lay community. Given her passion for studying and sharing ancient African history and culture and applying African principles to daily life, she is a member of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization and serves as its Southern Regional President. And it's my honor and pleasure to bring to you my dear sister, Dr. Reba. How you doing, darling?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on, Dr. Hood.
And so, and of course, Abarigani.
Umoja Bargani.
No praise, all praise to the Supreme God.
Yes,
so again, since we are starting at this point, again, I think that this is the first day of Kwanzaa, and we represent Umoja today, which is unity. And generally in the time, of course, is that, why don't you just address a little bit about what your history with the celebration of Kwanzaa, and on this day, what should we be thinking about, in your opinion, in reference to Umoja? What are our challenges, and what are our what is our vision for Umoja in this coming solar cycle?
Well, thank you for that question, and for those questions. In terms of my history in Kwanzaa, I have been celebrating Kwanzaa since I was about 3 or 4 years old when one of the first celebrations in Columbus, Ohio, where I was reared. Of course, we know that Kwanzaa was founded in 1966.
That's
and,
right.
And then in 1973 or so was when we had the first celebrations in Columbus, Ohio. So for me, it was coming up in a household where we celebrated Kwanzaa in a community, in an African-centered community where Kwanzaa was celebrated, and where we understood the principles were not just to be discussed and celebrated during the 7 days of Kwanzaa, but were to be actualized and carried out throughout the year. And so understanding, the importance of unity and of self-determination and of collective work and responsibility and cooperative economics and purpose and creativity and faith in our lives, in the way that we live those every day, was really a part of my everyday life, our everyday life as a family. And I'll mention something, so kind of thing that my father used to say to us when we were about to leave for school. He would say, well, did you practice Kaumba today? In other words, did you clean your room? Did you leave it better than the way it was when you inherited?
That part.
So that's just an example
That's
just
right.
very basic for a child to understand
That's right.
what it means to live Kwanzaa every day.
Right.
And Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles. Now, to your question about, and I'll just say that I'm grateful for that community that I grew up in. The African Center for Study and Worship, which was there in Columbus, Ohio, that was central to my understanding of who I am as an African. And just seeing the work that was done there. There was a bookstore there. We had a food co-op there. So, that was both around how we maintain our health and how we maintain our finances. So that was Ujamaa as well. So cooperative economics through that food co-op. And so it's important in that regard to have a community that really understands the importance of our African selves and upholding principles that will bring us together as a community and that will really allow us to thrive as a community. And so to your question around Umoja and unity, the importance of that in right now in the African-centered community and in the Black community generally, because we're not going to assume that all of the Black community is African-centered, although we want to work towards that.
That part.
Yes, but it is important for us to be unified, and what that means for us is really for us to start thinking about, particularly in the current climate, what are some of the things that we can agree on that are important to us. So coming together and deciding we have to have some common objectives as it relates to the way that we live, the way that we work together, the way that we're really going to have to be able to support each other in our community, because we can't necessarily depend on that coming from external sources. And so to that end, we think about, that's one of the things that we should be thinking about as far as unity is concerned. Unity and working together and recognizing that where we have a skill or where we have a talent, that is not just for our own benefit, that it's not only for our own accolades, but it's for how it can be of service to the rest of the community. I will say that in my life, understanding that my initial interest in science was because we know that one of the things we talked about was our community needs scientists. And so the extension of that was in an interest in health. And so that interest, therefore, in how do we work together to improve the health of our community. And so that means by education, that means, it may mean for someone else that working on physical fitness. It may mean something for someone else that may mean providing fresh fruits and vegetables for the community. And so those are all ways that other parts of the Nguzo Saba can be carried out, but it's all in ways in which we can be unified. And I'll stop there.
There's no doubt about it. Of course, just to kind of coordinate my journey, I was a part of that generation of 1966 when Black Power became the moniker for us. And my dear friend and one of my mentors, Kwame Ture, some people know him affectionately as Stokely Carmichael. And of course, during that time, again, I think that was our kind of many of our role models. I remember my early days, of course, in the student movement. In particular, we were developing what we call Black Student Associations during those early 60 days. And I was part of that. And of course, Detroit was my home base. As a matter of fact, I just read a piece the other day, a dear friend of mine, Malik Yakini, who had a freedom school there in Detroit. And he's, of course, been a part of the agrarian movement of agriculture, urban agriculture, and again, the whole food movement there. And he was, matter of fact, he was in Columbus a few weeks ago. But he was just saying about back in the day, you know, this was the time of gathering for us to, it's kind of like, you know, like before the game, and then you kind of huddle up and go over the plays and think about your opponent and what your strategy is going to be to win. So we kind of had that kind of vibe that now we used to party good back in the 60s, but at every party we would pause at that time, and of course we would go through our ceremony and integrate that in, because that was a movement that I still identify with, and we're going to talk more about that in the coming weeks and days. And that is the Kwanzaa 365 lifestyle movement. And so therefore, you know, it's not something that's, again, I made the point is that Kwanzaa is a season. It's not a holiday. You know, holidays are man-made, but seasons are divinely prescribed in the universe. And so Kwanzaa is a part of that time where we began to recognize the resurrection of the solar energy and what we must do. And for me, I've always taught my family that this is the time of year where we determine what our priority. All these issues are going to be there, but what is going to be our priority this year? Last year, we said as our priority that we want to deal with youth violence, and that's what we've been doing with the New Era Coalition and that type of thing here. And we've been very, very humbled with the people that have come forward. Some people, again, you know, some people still, I remember the times when, you know, with those of us who were part of that movement, Kwanzaa was the time when you took on your African name, your African identity. And so therefore, then I remember the people kind of saw that as kind of like, well, this is just something you plan at, so to speak, you know. But the fact of the matter was, it wasn't not something we were planning at. And by the way, mentioned that I'm sure that you have an original name as well. What is your African Senate name?
Joka.
Okay,
yes.
Well, give us the attributes of Joka.
So Joka is what means robe of adornment, and it really speaks to a person who moves with integrity, but also who moves with grace, and who has generally somebody who moves with grace, but someone who moves with integrity. Is
right.
Really
and what I would say to it also, I'm very familiar with it. I would say it also is kind of the person that moved with the divine mother spirit, you know. In one part of my studies, there's a concept in Arabic called labas, and that labas means cover, and so therefore, you know, it's the divine element of adornment, but it's adornment of our life. The cover of our life is and that of course the culture bearer, because at the end of the day, is that the culture that gives us the environment for us to transform and to evolve. And I think that this kind of ushers us into our next part of our discussion, and that is the history of the Association for the Study of African Classical Civilization, which we are proud to host this coming January here in Columbus, Georgia, at the ODH, and of course you might not be familiar. Well, you are familiar with ODH, on the Holy Hill. of Carver High School. You walked on those holy grounds, and so
Yes.
you the matter of fact, you got a sweatshirt while you was up there, didn't you?
That's right. I did.
That's right. So and again, and since that time, of course, it's going to be it's really going to be it will be a holiday when we celebrate the weekend of January the 24th, 25th, and 26th, because on the 25th, they're also going to be celebrating the victory of Dr. George Washington Carver High School there on that hill at the same time that we'll be doing the conference. So basically, I think that the divine order kind of put that together whereby we all would be up there celebrating. And I think that I'm just excited about that connection there. And matter of fact, there's another event that's taking place also where the community has a march going on that same day also, and marching against community violence and again in the spirit of unity and things of that sort. So again, January 25th this year is going to be a grand occasion here in Columbus, Georgia. And so I'm delighted to have you with us today and talk a little bit about the association that we, of course, are so divinely connected to. And of course, I was blessed to have been, personally, my master teacher, as I tell people many times, was, of course, Dr. John Henry Clark. And not only he was my brother, he was my friend, but he was my teacher. He was my OG. And and of course, in the movement of the new era, we call OGs the original Godsters. Instead of gangsters. And of course, our movement is from gangster to Godster. And this is what the transformation of our mind is, because many times people think change is what it's all about. But it's not change. It's really about growth, because change can be bad, but growth and maturity is really what we're about. And so when you go from gangster to Godster, then that's the movement, particularly for those of us who would be kings, of our domains in the kingly spirit. So again, I'd like to thank you so very, very much. So share with us a little bit, of course, as you know, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Greg Carr, we shared a little bit at the beginning of our broadcast, just so that those who don't know, we kind of get a sense. Of course, we're going to have some other with Dr. Joseph Ben Jokanan, and of course, Dr. Clark as well, who is certainly preeminent among many of us. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your understanding of the history of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization.
No, absolutely. And thank you for that. So ASCAC was founded in 1985. I'll say actually the year before that, in 1984, during the Ancient Egyptian Studies Conference in California, there was a gathering of scholars who were studying the history and culture of ancient Africa, who presented during that conference and who met and talked about really what an organization that was committed to the study and the dissemination of about African history and culture, what an organization like that would look like. And so they actually began the outline of what the association would be. And so that following year, in 1985, the scholars met in Chicago with the Kemetic Institute, where Dr. Jacob Carruthers was, and he, along with Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, and Dr. Asa Hilliard, as you mentioned, and Leonard Jeffries and Maulana Karenga, all together became the founders of the Association of the Study for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. So there in Chicago was where we were founded, and since that time, every year have convened, but in the middle of those convenings, we're continuing to do that important study and work and the publication, the writing and the scholarship and the dissemination of that scholarship to our people. So when we meet for our conferences, whether they be our national conferences or our regional conferences, like the one that we will have in Columbus, Georgia, those are opportunities for us to share and to connect and to discuss our ideas. But it's in between those conferences where we are doing the work of continued study, which takes place in study groups And so in cities where ASCAC members are, we organize into study groups where we are studying important texts that increase our understanding of African history and culture so that we can share it with others. We are also, we have a journal. The association has the Compass Journal that has several editions, and we will continue with that journal. And we form in a number of other ways. So our members have been consultants in creating curricula around African history and the study of African history. And so in all of those ways, the organization has made significant contributions in our communities across the country and really and in the world. So we've actually at our conferences, some of our members who are in other places also present and are working on making sure that we understand the history and culture, not just for understanding facts, but for understanding how important principles can be applied to our everyday lives. So understanding Ma'at and the balance and the truth and the harmony, which are all attributes of Ma'at, the reciprocity, and understand how those are not just words or ideas or attributes that are for memorization, but they are related to how we should deal with each other. So am I being honest with you? Am I being truthful in my word and following that up with my deed, which is important in any relationship? And so understanding, for example, that's just one example of how we apply that to our everyday lives. And so those would be some of the ways that we apply some of the learnings from what we're studying in ASCAC.
And one thing that I just say this is that, from my journey, I would ascribe the founding of ASCAP is being inspired by the Kwanzaa movement, the Kwanzaa 365 movement, because that is part of Kujichagulia, that we have to create new institutions because we can't fix the system as Dr. Joyce DeGruy says, because we all have said it, but she said it late, and that is that the system is doing what it's designed to do. It's not designed to make us whole and healthy. So therefore, we can't fix this system. And not only that, we have the illusion that somehow or another we can get in the system. You cannot get in this system. You always will be an adjunct to the system. You cannot get in the system. You can only have your own system. And that means that either our system is going to be a beggar system or our system is going to be a building system. And so my contention is that Kwanzaa basically turns the dynamics around. But I find many times in our community that we are, and that's why I think it's very, very important that even this issue about us, in our culture, historically growing up, I think everybody in my neighborhood used to have a nickname. In other words, many times you wouldn't even know what a person's government name was because everybody knew her by their nickname, because that came from the spirit of ancient Kwanzaa, that because our names were inspired spiritually from life, and so therefore the child would not just be given a name until there was a ceremony whereby people would observe that child, the mood of the child. They would pray on that child to see what the vibe was, and through that child's life experiences, then that would be a quote unquote a nickname, but basically there's an attribute, a quality that everybody knows. Boo Boo Baby. Everybody knew who Boo Boo Baby was. You know what I'm saying? Because then that came out of a certain kind of experience. You know what I'm saying? So we're kind of bringing some of these things back in their connectedness so that we can understand those Africanisms that are part of our lives that we many times don't recognize that they are in fact what the origins are and why we do what we do. There's a concept, for example, that we talk about is what we call CPT time. You heard that before, right?
I've heard it. Yes.
Color people time. But the fact of the matter is that that in our studies, colored people time was not colored people time. It was collective potential time, which meant that whatever time you got there, that you got there at the time that you should be there, and that you're going to do your work. So therefore, everybody said, well, we waiting on so-and-so to get, no. You get to work because wherever he or she is, they're working on our behalf now. So therefore, they say, well, why are you getting here late? No. You do your work. So therefore, when you leave, I might still be there. So it's a collective potential time. It was not a color people time. So our time was based upon a real time and not just a false prescribed time. So those are the kind of things that during these Kwanzaa season that we try to bring a clarity to, and I think that one of the things that we about, and I think you alluded to it quite clearly, and that is that we have to constantly revisit how we can live better. And certainly, we have those, many of us have government names, but among those who are familiar with us, we got those family names, Riri, Bebe, or whatever that family name, that's really the Kwanzaa name, and that's the certain spirit that comes out of that. So my contention is that, of course, I was blessed to meet Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Yusuf Benjo-Kanan, as well as Dr. Clark, and to hear them many times. But of course, I spent more time with Dr. Clark and of course Dr. Ben in that order. And so, did you get a chance to fellowship and to study, or to just kind of to have some meaningful communication with either one of them?
I did, and actually, I would take that back even to, I talked about the community that I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and when Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Hilliard in particular, the three of them, when they would come to visit Columbus, they came to our house, and so we would sit and have dinner with them. My grandmother lived across the street, and so Dr. Ben would usually stay over there, with he would stay in her house when he would come to town. And so the times spent with them in conversation, learning from them encouraging me. I mean, and this we're talking about now. I was, kind of elementary age into kind of middle school age, and then somewhat into high school as well. Now, Dr. Hilliard, of course, was here in Atlanta when I came here for undergrad. I was at
Georgia State,
and so he was so he was here. And before he made transition, he was here for part of the time after I moved back to Atlanta.
Exactly.
So,
beautiful,
so yes, we had those, really direct and relationships. I would say too, with Dr. Clark, one of the special moments that I had with him, and it wasn't just one time, but was during conferences when Dr. Clark would just sit and hold court, would have, young people could sit, he would sit and young people could ask him as many questions as they wanted to ask, and he very patiently answered them. And so that was really an example of the way that an elder can feed into young people, and that they can be inspired, not just inspired, but also get their assignment and understand, and to get their assignment. And so that was really a beautiful way that Dr. Clark frequently shared. Dr. Hilliard, of course, was very generous in sharing information. To have a conversation with him, he'll send you by email a long bibliography of books that these are some things that you need to know and reference.
Exactly.
So they were all very, very giving in that way. And with Dr. Jeffries, later in life,
Leonard Jeffries,
relationship with him. But I would say in my younger years, it was the three of them. Dr. Carruthers as well. He and my father were friends, and so Dr. Carruthers, he came to Columbus when my father had his retirement, and so it was good to see him then. But absolutely having those relationships were all very important and part of my grounding.
Exactly, and I was blessed, of course, as I listened to you. I mean, I just get even more, kind of full, I guess, because he and we had one-on-one time. I mean, kind of hanging out, walking around and just having. I mean, like, he would come here to Columbus for his birthday every year. And the first 3 Kwanzas, basically he was, he actually helped me. See, when I relocated from Detroit, which Kwanzaa was, it was everywhere in Detroit. Detroit, it was I call it was the Black Mecca before Atlanta. When Detroit, the sun set on Detroit, then it rose on Atlanta. Right down 85.
Yeah.
Right. So because it starts in Detroit, and you come on
That's
down.
right.
So, but again, Dr. Clark is really kind of, I don't know if I told you, I think I might have told you my story here, but when I first met him, really, I was using his materials. I was teaching Black Studies at Wayne State University and Wayne Community College, where we started the Black Studies program, and in Wayne State University there in Detroit. And he used to have a video. I think it was the history of slavery. I forget what the video was. It was on a reel-to-reel at that time, and we would be able to get it out of the media center, and I would use it with my classes. And I just found a kinship because he just made it so plain and so simple. I remember the scene where he would be in a classroom teaching, and in this particular video. So when I found out at that time they had a vision, Shaw College in Detroit had a campus there in Detroit, from the Shaw College down in the South, where they had a Shaw College of Detroit, and so they had a summer institute, and that's why I met Dr. George, who was the assistant at that time to Dr. Ben, and Dr. Clark was there doing this summer institute there in Detroit. And when I was registering, I was telling the brother a little bit about who I was and, that type of thing. And then I mentioned that originally I was from Columbus, Georgia. And he said, "What? Columbus, Georgia?" He said, "Dr. Clark from Columbus." I said, "What?" All these years, I've been studying him and watching him and listening to him, but had no idea actually that he was from Columbus. So then immediately, let me go get him. So he got him. And from that point on, we stayed in touch. And I come to find some of his class, his hometown friends who knew him as a child and that type of thing. So I just, in other words, it was that kind of relationship that we broke bread many, many times because he would come down. And Mama Clark, of course, Mama Clark, she was a jewel. She loves her some Dr. Hood. That's for sure. Yes, she did. She loves some Dr. Hood. And I still have some pictures. I have to show you sometime. I have to put them out. Of course, that was during the time of his transition to ancestry. Did you come? You were there? Were you there?
I was not there. No.
Okay, but that Dr. Jeffries and Ace and all of them were here, and I think Dr. Carr, I think he came also. Yes. I'm not mistaken, and so. And because we did a Black Heritage Tour, of course, at that time I took people around, and of course, we had the conference and everything, and in honor of him, and I'm so delighted that again we're back here in Columbus to elevate and to highlight, because I just think that we must elevate, here in Columbus, Georgia, the value of him, and I want to continue to elevate his name. And as a matter of fact, I think that we probably need to have on his birthday coming forward, I think maybe we might continue to have maybe a Dr. John Henry Clark teach-in day. Here, and maybe that could go nationally as well. But I think that we're going to try to do something like that too every year, even though the southern region probably won't be here, but again, I'm just hoping that we can start that type of situation as well.
That would be excellent, and that would be along the lines of really what Dr. Clark, his life, and certainly ASCAC, what ASCAC stands for. Exactly. Yes, and so with our regional conference, which is really honoring Dr. Clark. So it's the theme of the conference being Deep Thought and Wisdom Teachings of Nana John Henry Clark, Past, Present, and Future. And that really speaks to, I see Brother D. Lee Turner asked the question, how do we transfer that energy into today? And the conference is part of an attempt at doing that. So as we understand what
Exactly.
Dr. Clark's teachings were, and I'm going to say are.
Right.
What Dr.
Yes.
John Henry Clark's teachings are.
He
There
lives. He
are
lives.
absolutely there are
He lives.
absolute
He lives.
lessons indeed. So
Right.
there are lessons to be learned for us to apply today. You know, Dr.
Right.
Clark talked about the fact that, you know, we wear socks or we wear underwear that we don't make. And so
That's right.
how do we use the skills that we have to the benefit of our community in
Exactly.
ways that we can serve each other and be fiscal or financially and support ourselves and each other financially. He talks, so that is, you know, as we tie it in also to Kwanzaa and the Nguzo Saba, that is Ujamaa, that's cooperative economics. You know,
Right.
having schools is a part of Ujima, or collective work and responsibility. So we know our children need to be educated, and so having after school programs or African-centered schools are parts of that. So, you know, I guess the best way to answer that question, both as it relates to Kwanzaa and as it relates to our conference, is about if we understand what our strengths are, what our talents are, what our skills are, and recognize that we have a role to our community, we have a responsibility to our community to use that for the benefit of the African community, and understand that as our purpose. So again, continues to go back to the Kwanzaa principles. So purpose, you know, understanding that our purpose is for the benefit of improving our community and working in concert with our community. So, you know, so January 24th through the 26th, when ASCAC is in Columbus, we will continue to share these ideas, with the Friday, the 24th being our reception, the 25th, when we really delve deeply into the presentations that will highlight some of the teachings of Dr. Clark and how we apply them today. I'm really excited.
And I think that's really, again, heaven had again, as I mentioned, that he was the inaugural speaker for example, there had not been a Kwanzaa celebration in Columbus, Georgia before we relocated and we started this celebration in Columbus, Georgia. And so we talked about all these principles.
Yeah.
And one thing about it is that from my discussion with him, now we had some vigorous discussions. I mean, it's like, as I tell people all the time, the way you talk to an elder, you don't try to tell an elder nothing really.
Mm-hmm.
You ask the elder questions, okay? And so my point is that one way of energizing is for people like D. Lee Turner to come to learn. See, one of the problems that we have is that, as you mentioned before, is that if you respect your elders, those of us who've been in this movement, then you'll sit and listen, and then you'll operate from there. But today, many times, people want to take a shortcut. They want to carry the name, but they don't want to fulfill the claim. And so my contention is that we don't learn anything else, is that you learn to show deference to your elders in this movement. Now, what you do now, once you get the knowledge and the understanding, then you will get the wisdom from the elders. You can get the knowledge and understanding, but it's the wisdom that you miss, because as we say, when you talk to an elder, you're talking to a treasure, you're talking to a institution, a library.
Right.
Okay, so therefore we have to remember to honor that. But unfortunately, there's a generation, and even in the movement, one of the problems is that we have a generation of people who call themselves nationalists and other identifications, but they don't respect the elders to listen, to learn. They're so busy wanting to teach us what. I even heard some people talking about that people need to move out the way and pass the torch. No, that ain't the way. No, the elder will light your torch. We don't pass no torch. We don't. What do you mean pass a torch? We are the torch. We will light your torch. But it's those things like that we don't know how to really communicate. But when in the classical African civilization, to be civilized in that framework, that means that you respect your elders, and that's a part of the Kwanzaa celebration. Is that That's what the whole thing about it is, the ancestors, because your elders are the closest one to the ancestors. I don't just know, you don't just know Dr. Clark from a book. You know Dr. Clark from life. You have to talk to him. You have to walk with him. I sat with him. You know, we discussed his life and why he think about things in certain way. So I had an intimate relationship with him, a personal relationship. So therefore, there are some people who take on the name and they carry the name and they hold up the banner, but they don't show the type of deference to those who actually walked with him and got the guidance and got the on point from those people. And so we're trying to pass that on, but they have to learn that it's about respect of those who walk the walk, so that we can learn how to walk the walk. And if you, once you know, and then you choose to do something different, that's one thing. But if you don't know, then you need to ask questions about what this was representing, what was his voice, what was the voice of these giants, and of course they gave their life. And one of the things that I guess that you and I both are saying here is that yes, the Association for the Study of classical African civilization, meaning that we have to look at what does that mean in all walks of life, political, economic, social, family, you see, culturally. In other words, we have to rebuild a civilization. And one thing about it is that I explain to people, many times people get the principles and they get the I call it the cultural symbols, but they don't understand what the whole Kwanzaa process is that actually when you set up the Kwanzaa celebration, you're rebuilding and resurrecting a civilization then.
That's right.
From the Munkeka to the Nguzo Saba. You know, in other words, we're teaching you from doing that, we're teaching you how to rebuild. But people want to do it from the 26th to the 1st. Then after that, they go back to being Negroes.
Right. And I'm sorry.
One of the things I want you to respond to in this. Maya Angelou was saying in a reel that I saw, and she was saying that to a great extent that we waste a lot of our time. And I say this because you and I and others are professionals. We are scholars. We are, we've evolved in this arena, and I find that really I find more comfort going into the prisons and dealing with those brothers, dealing with these people on the street level, the grassroots people, the blue collar people, than the bourgeoisie. It seems that and because what Maya Angelou said was that those people who are the bourgeoisie mindset, they think they have something to lose by joining this movement. But the people, the everyday people, don't have nothing to lose. So we might spend more time really working with those people who don't have nothing to lose, because those people who want to assimilate and want to water down what Dr. Clark represented. Because one of the things he said, we don't have no friends.
How about that?
And so therefore it's about, building a new civilization. Now he did his part. Now he built the foundation, but we have to build the rooms, the house, the structures on this foundation with the same spirit of the foundation. So what do you say about where are we? Because there's been a lot of writings about our black middle and upper class that they really have betrayed the movement. Now, back in the early days of the Dr. Thomas Brewers and Paul Robeson, the black middle class was our hope in the Booker T. Washington plan of rebuilding society. Even during the Garvey movement, though it was the upper class. If we got an education, to help our brother. But today it seems like our bourgeoisie, and of course, I don't know if I'm part of the Divine Nine. but I'm disappointed with the overall. There are individuals who, of course, I'm quite proud of. But I'm saying though, but as a class, it seems that we have a caste, economic caste system with our middle and upper class brothers and sisters, they are more concerned about assimilating than they are rebuilding our Black Wall Street movements, etc.
Well, yeah, I mean that is a challenge that we have, and that really goes back to what we talked about earlier, in terms of the importance of someone being reared in a community, raised in a community where they understand the importance of having an African self-consciousness. So I know that I am an African. I know what my role is to other African people. And so any of the strengths that I have, any of the talents that I have, any of the skills that I develop over time are for the purpose of building our community, of building African people.
You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice.
That's right. And so
I don't have a choice. Exactly.
Yes. And so our mission then, our purpose, part of our purpose then should be to help to develop that sense of African self-consciousness in young people, such that as they progress through the various stages, and just as you were talking about the role of the elders, with each person understanding their role at their various stages of life. So right. As a young child, learning from those who are older than they are, who've had more life experience than they are, and understanding how to, if those people who are older than them are also looking at them and saying, okay, this person is really good with their hands. Maybe this is somebody who can be a carpenter or an architect to help to design the buildings that our people will live in, safe buildings. And so, or, you know, but it's all with identifying what the strengths are, both from in terms of their physical strengths, their intellectual strengths, and even in terms of their character, and identifying how those are going to best serve African people. And then so as they understand that and they move into the next stages of life, whether it be in their the stages of being the warrior stage, where they're understanding, okay, this is my role in helping to protect other African people. And then in the nation building stage, when they're building institutions. And then beyond that, you know, is when they're in the elder stage. And so if we understand what our purposes are at each of those stages of life, then we are, regardless of our level of education or where we are in terms of the profession that we are in, that we are practicing, then that's going to then benefit African people. But really, it starts from at a young age and beginning to develop that understanding of who you are as a person to your people, to your family, to your community, to those who are around you. And so with that, then we could be one of the solutions to the challenges that we see, where there's that disconnect among those who have, you know, have attained a certain professional level or what have you, and don't recognize that they part of their mission should be to serve other African people.
Exactly. And one of the things that disturbed me many times, and I talked to a lot of our upper middle class professionals, and many times they talk about retiring, and then they've done their part, and so therefore they just want to relax now. I don't understand. I mean, my mind can't function. I can't understand how do you retire from a movement that is never going to be over. I can understand but it should be, we're going to have recreation, we're going to have a good time, but that should be all in the flow of us building, because there was one time the movie industry, we had our own movie industry. We had our own theaters across the country. We had they called them the chilling circuit. I call it the lamb chop circuit instead of the chilling circuit myself. But my point is that, but we had all our institutions. And as Booker T. Washington says, that when it comes to us socially, it can be like the fingers, but when it comes economically, we be like the fists. So I'm saying is that we have to somehow, as you mentioned, we got to deal with the young people, but also somehow we have to at least get those who are not going to help, for them not to be a problem, because it seems like we've been sold out too often, because we're afraid. And I'm wondering, what? There's nothing to fear but fear itself. What are you afraid of? This movement is not something that you're going to get a knockout punch and we're going to be done and everything. No, it's not going to ever be over. The grass continues to grow. The trees continue to grow. The sun continues to rise and set. We have to, it's not going to ever get over. Even if we was on the top, we still have work to do. But my contention is that somehow or another we have to be able to gather the language and the institutions that would allow us to understand that this is a way of life, a way of living, and it's not part time; it's full time.
And I'll go back to in part in response to your other question, to your question too, is that there may be some people who might not ever really do the work in the same way that we're discussing. However, they may have the financial means, and so that may mean that they will contribute. And so that goes back to the first question that you asked about unity and how, and I talked about the importance of us really coming to some common agreements on what are going to be some important objectives for us. What are going to be some key objectives from us, some key things that we can agree across, and across all of us that are important and that we need. And so maybe it's that, we'll talk about, for example, ASCAC is looking to have a building. So it may be that somebody may never decide to come in and themselves study in the study group, or they may not do any of those things, but they know that it's important for a building to exist where some young people can come after school. And so they would say, okay, well, yeah, this is important, so I'm going to give some of my money to this. And so that's where people who have varying degrees of resources or other amounts of resources may be able to help in that way, and can be useful in that way, even if they may not be quite ready to do some of the same kind of work. But we have to be open to having those kinds of conversations and not assuming that other people may not be willing to help and be a part of what we're doing in some kind of way.
Right. I think that part of the issue really is not, because I believe in 360 degrees of knowledge.
Yes.
So that means that you're going to have people, as you mentioned, we need everything. There's nothing that we don't need in a civilization. But my contention is that that so often we, for example, I did my dissertation work on why is it that we, though we are individually probably the most talented, hands down, the most talented people on earth, but collectively, of late. Now, this is not, I'm talking about of late, that we collectively, we are poor in terms of our performance. Because even if you look at us after the Emancipation Proclamation, we built cities and towns. We had our own institutions. I mean, so I'm saying is that we have more money now today than we did then, yet we're not doing. Right, like in Columbus, Georgia, we don't even have a black grocery store in a major grocery store. So my point is that there's something there that we're going to have to. I mean, there are many people who contribute to the cause. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those people who can't even find their way to celebrate Kwanzaa. And I'm saying it doesn't matter what your economics are. In order to embrace these principles. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this at the conference for sure. But I just want to kind of highlight the fact that the missing piece is that I feel must challenge our Black professionals to be more intentional about what they are doing to assure our Kujichagulia.
That's right.
And not just, for example, this past holiday, we had hundreds and hundreds of people giving out toys to children. But at the same time, we need to be giving them books. At the same time, we need to be supporting after school program. But they'll give out 500 turkeys and they'll pat themselves on the back because gave out 500 turkeys for Thanksgiving. But what about next week? So I'm saying that I cannot let them off the hook about giving the tragedies that's going on in our communities. And I find that our children are killing each other every day, but yet that don't seem to make the news, and we don't challenge the news that we hear all the lockups and all the killings, But when it comes to programs like ours, and we pray that we can get a lot of news coverage on what we're talking about doing here on the 25th. But I'm saying to you that many times we have to challenge the news organizations to cover this as much as they're going to cover the drug deal that went bad. Yes. I mean, in other words, that we have a lot of work to do in those areas, because to whom as much is given, I believe much is required.
Yes, yes, and and then to your point, the media isn't necessarily designed to highlight those things that are going to build us, and so that's where we really have to rely on mediums like this.
That's right.
We have like Roland Martin and the Black Star Network,
right,
and
right.
Some of the work that Karen Hunter is doing, and so in those spaces where we really can talk and understand better what the good things that are going to develop us further. And it's really that's where we have to be ready and prepared to share our stories in those kinds of spaces. You talked about that the system is going to do what the system was designed to do.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so to your continued point about Kwanzaa is that, if we remember that when we gather for Kwanzaa, for our Kwanzaa ceremonies and Kwanzaa celebrations, is that this is a time that we are rededicating ourselves to the Umoja Sasa and to the Nguzo Saba. Mm-hmm. And when we are identifying those things, just like you said, that we're going to focus on for the year, and that is what we carry out throughout the year in the following year. So this time in 2025, when we come back, if we haven't done the things that we said that we were going to do, then we almost don't even deserve to celebrate it, So we need to make sure that during Kwanzaa that we recognize that it is a rededication to the Nguzo Saba. Right. And that it is a time for us to one, rededicate, but also to report on what were the achievements that we made over the course of the year that demonstrated that we were carrying out those 7 principles. Right. And as we do that, and with each year, and as we share about that in mediums like this one, as we're saying, then perhaps in that way more people will see the benefit of it and will begin to celebrate Kwanzaa, and more importantly, will begin to exhibit the principles of the Nguzo Saba throughout the year.
Exactly. And before we go for the evening, but I want to say this also, is that many of us think that I think we put too much time on individuality. That's an American concept. The African concept is communal. Because as an individual, it's not about the person, it's about the people. Yes. I am because we are, therefore I am. I mean, so therefore, once we understand that we individually, we're fine individually, but collectively we are poor. And we're inadequate collectively. And that's what I did my work on. And it's very clear that it goes back again to this collective identity that we have to, and as a psychologist, I bring Dr. Clark's work into a framework of how do I manifest that, dealing with the personality, the psychology, and the collective, the family, the neighborhoods, the communities. In other words, how do we, in our collective identity, and that's really what it is, that we're going to have to get comfortable with. And I think part of that is that we have to, I just believe that we have to, give our government name for when we need it. But when we're dealing with each other, we need to have our African nicknames. I think that would help us, with our collective identity, understanding our distinction. And I think that's part of the challenge that we have today. So in closing, again, I thank you so very, very much, and hopefully that you'll be able to share this discussion with your friends on Facebook and other platforms. And everyone that's listening, please share this discussion. And because this is a Kwanzaa discussion that we're having here, these are the kind of discussions that we have during Kwanzaa about we're not just a feel good. I mean, we're challenging each other. Even though I think I'm doing well, challenge me. You think you're doing well, I'm gonna challenge you. In other words, we gotta challenge ourselves because to go to the next level. I mean, and it's not challenging as a put down, but challenge that we can do better. We can do better. And so I'm not so big on the warm and fuzzy. I believe in tough love, and of course that's so that's why we need what is it your name again? Jakar?
Jakar, that's right.
Okay, Sister Jakar, we need the Sister Jakar, to bring the nurturing on here. Because I'm air and fire, and you earth and water. So so and we come together that we create the human being, right?
That's right.
So in closing, what would you like to say? And by the way, we look forward to having you. Dr. Carr going to be with you on Emancipation Day? You say he's going to be in town?
Yes, he will be.
Okay, so we look to Dr. Greg Carr being here as well, and we look forward to joining the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, and on that day here in Columbus. I will be getting more details to you in reference to that as well. That, the matter of fact, there's a Kwanzaa celebration going on in Columbus, put on by Delta Sigma Theta sorority tonight.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll have to wear my red.
No. All right. Okay, I know you. I thought you had some colors in you somewhere.
That's right.
So I'm gonna get my Krispy Kreme.
That's right.
That's right. So and you know what that means. So I don't have to tell you. So again. And that's what it's all about. We're saying that we have to, and I was telling someone the other day that it's about us integrating our own institutions, not so much integrating other people's institutions, but let us integrate our own institutions and bring them to bear into this time, because united we stand, divided we fall. That's right. And I appreciate you so very, very much, and I appreciate your leadership. And I hope to, when you leave, I hope that we will have a cadre of a study group of ASCAP study group here in Columbus, Georgia, that want to study rather than they just got out. They just got. We used to say you got pet milk on your breath. What you want to teach people? Teach the babies. Don't try to teach no elders. I mean, that's what the thing is. That everybody is an elder. If you, I tell them all the time, if you're 20, everybody under 20, you're an elder too. But don't try to 20-year-old, 25, 35. Don't try to tell us 50, 60, 70 years. Please don't try to teach us. Just ask us questions. If we get that right, I think we'll be on the road to a victory for the ancestors. So in closing, again, we could do this. And by the way, you're officially a visionary now. And that means that every Thursday at 7 p.m., God willing, that you will tune in and be ready to jump in at any occasion. And also, whatever you're doing, this is a platform for you continuously. We want this as a collective dynamic here. So it is a platform to reach out and send people, share people. Visions Now is what it's all about. Because, people, we say that people without a vision will perish. And of course, the people without knowledge will suffer. So we definitely suffering. And if we don't get our knowledge base up, then we're gonna perish too. So we want. That's why we call it Visions Now. In other words, we got to have a vision now, not tomorrow. We got to have a vision today, right now. That's right. And that's the only time we can live is in the now. So what's your closing words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Well, first, I just want to thank you and honor you for the excellent work that you're doing here on Vision Now. And we look forward really to having everyone together January 24th through 26th, because it'll be important for us to discuss Dr. Clark and his teachings as we understand how to apply what we've learned from and what we continue to learn from Dr. Clark. Right. To our everyday lives as we build together as African people. So for those who want to register, there is a tiny URL link. There's tinyurl.com/ASCAC, ASCACSR 2025 REG. Can
you put that in the chat?
Yes, I will do that. Okay. And so that everybody will have that. And so we look forward to seeing everyone. I'll see everyone when we're there on the 1st, and again when we're back for the conference, January 24th through the 26th.
Right.
And again, as we've talked about tonight, remember that the principles of the Nguzo Saba are for us to practice year-round, are for us to
Right.
demonstrate year-round, and that this is really just a time for us to rededicate ourselves to those principles.
Right. And I share many times and that in our evolution, we start studying first. And then when we evolve from studying, we start practicing. And then when we evolve from practicing, we start living. And so
That's right.
those of us who are living the Kwanzaa 365, we encourage you to study and to practice, and then to evolve into living this lifestyle that we have here. So again, we look forward to having you, and we're going to invite probably a small gathering of people if your time permits. You can let me know after the Emancipation Day proclamation to just have a little round table discussion around the principle of Imani on that day in celebration of the Kwanzaa. So I don't know what we'll do it here at the Book Museum, but it would probably be maybe 10, 15 people, something that's a small gathering of people. And anyone out there listening who would like to be a part of that discussion, then of course once you let me know whether or not you all will be able to stay for a little post the discussion around the principle of Imani, then I certainly will let people know who are interested, the location and time for that, so we can have and they can help promote the event. Those who want to help promote the event as well will be, and you can kind of share more and maybe have some membership applications also for a study group. So I hope to inaugurate a study group here in Columbus, Georgia, around these principles, as well. Okay.
Yes. All right. Absolutely. And I think we'll plan to do that. I'll confirm with you in the morning, but I think we'll plan to stay over for that discussion on the 1st.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, Asante Sana.
Asante Sana to you.
And
yes.
Amen Ra El La Atin.
All right.
Amen.
Yes.
So again, so thank you for that my autism, that balancing, and of course that's what it's all about. And I hope that this is also a beginning of ongoing. And of course, whoever's going to be next, this discussion here, hopefully you'll be referring people for interview as well, that we'll be doing this throughout the year, because I just think that this platform here, we dedicated it to as an expression of whatever's going on in ASCAT. So that's what we're dedicated to, because that's what the vision is that I got from Dr. Clark, and I want to make sure I do my part. And as you are a physician, so you know how to use that tool for the vision. So I'm trying to use the mental health and the psychosocial tool, addressing it from that angle. And so let's say one is a home builder, then they'll talk about that part of the reconstruction of us as a people for our village. So again, thank you so very, very much for adding to our Kwanzaa village. And you're such a welcome fresh air. And I think that you're certainly a role model for us all, but certainly for our sisters today. There's a lot of discussion, and we'll listen for another time. But there's a lot of discussion to be had between males versus men and females versus women, and that's a discussion that we have, and that they're not the same. We want to get more men and more women in our community, and I think our parenting of our children will get healthier when we do.
Yes.
So that's my mystic moment for today. If the truth be told.
How about
So anything you'd like to share? We have a segment we call "If the Truth Be Told." Last words. What would be if the truth be told? What would you like to say?
If the truth be told, as you talked about you're addressing the mental health and I'm dealing with the physical. If the truth be told, they both are one. The mental, the physical, and the spiritual.
That's right. Just starting from one and coming to the other one. The physical come to the mental, the mental go to the physical.
That's right. And when they're all aligned, that's where optimal health resides.
That's right. 360 degrees is connected.
That's right.
What
That's
hotel?
Right. Hotel.
Sure.
That's right.
All right, dear. So again, thank you so very much. Look forward to many other discussions, vigorous discussions, healthy discussions, because we are a holistic people.
That's right.
Because we are people that have to bring holism back into its proper place.
Right.
We're not individuals. We are a collective. We are life in itself. And we are people of the sun. And we're the God's people. So again, thank you. And I'm taking my producer back here because I guess you know Julian.
Julian, yes.
Right.
And, yes. Thank you, Brother Julian.
And so anything we good?
Just a Baragani.
Okay, a Baragani.
Right, Umoja Baragani.
Sante Sana.
Sante Sana. Njema.
Oh, Jeff. Oh yeah, I'm taking some.
In our weekly meal, supper time. Let's build that spirit of Harambe. Organize. Educate. Pamoja, Tutashinda, Uhuru Sasa, Watu Wazuri. Peace, soul, love, with a little sprinkle of power. Good night.